And we're speaking of the hypocrisy and the qualities of hypocrisy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. And these are the things that we want to try to make sure that although we're believers, we want to remove any kind of connection to hypocrisy in characteristics or anything else, take it out of our life and be as far away from it as we can. Now, this level of hypocrisy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of in the Quran, where there will be punished on the day of judgment, this hypocrisy is in regards to their faith, but again, we don't want even any type of hypocrisy, even if it's the smallest of things of us saying something that has no connection to faith, but we say something, but we do something different to it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then talks about them and says, وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ. When they meet the believers, they say, we believe. And when they return back to their devils, they say to them, we are with you, we were only mocking. We were only mocking them. Allah yastahzi'u bihim wa yamudduhum fi tughyanihim ya'mahun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mocks them and leaves them in their transgression blinded. So it starts with them saying, again we believe, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already said that وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ آمَنَّا. They've already said that we believe. In that sense, they're coming into the fold of Islam by their tongues and attesting to that. Over here is an extra emphasis to say that no, we sincerely believe. Because if we look at the previous ayats, there's this nasiha, this advice to them that be careful what you're doing, don't spread corruption, believe the way the people are believing, and they're returning and replying back to that by saying, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. We really, in our hearts, we believe. So again, they're claiming that. But then when they go back to their devils, they say, we are with you, we are only mocking them. So there's a few things to note over here. One, you can sort of see a scenery that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sort of building as we recite the Quran. We don't want to just take the Quran. There's one way to look at it, which is verbatim. We just look at one ayah and try to take that ayah and just really break it down and dissect it and see all the different benefits that we can take from it. And there's a lot, plenty. But we also want to step back and just look at how the Quran puts itself together. And over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is building a scene where we're talking about the hypocrites, and we've so far mentioned the believers, we've mentioned the disbelievers, and now we're talking about the hypocrites. There's this fourth group that is very subtly mentioned over here, where it's not talking about them, it just mentions them, and that's their devils. And then goes back to the hypocrisy. It's as if, when you're seeing something like whether people they take a lot of these different techniques to build movies and build this drama where you see this person who is the villain, but then there's this shady character that just comes in like a cloud of smoke that just shows that there's someone else above this guy, and then it goes off and you don't know who that person was. You don't know who the real criminal is until later on towards the end. And over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is building the scene of people. Yes, there's disbelievers. Yes, there's hypocrites. But there's also this shady, devilish group as well that they go to them. I mean, look at how much authority they must have, that these people who are hypocrites, who have the audacity to go up to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and say, we believe. And they have this audacity and this boldness that they're doing things, and they're told, don't do this. They're like, oh no, we're not doing that, we're not doing that. But then there's this other group that they go to them and they say, we're with you, we're just mocking them. So we'll come to that group later on as we go through this surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just puts that little introduction there for us to know that there's always something else behind the scene as well. And for us, the word that's used over here is devilish, but they're not speaking to devils. They're not speaking to the devils which we can't see from that spiritual realm. They're actually, like in the Quran, it says min al jinnati wan nas, the last surah that we've talked about before. Remember we said that these devils can be both from humankind and jinn kind. So this is these group of people who take the same act, which is their rebelliousness that the devil had towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's like, no, I'm not going to bow. I'm not going to prostrate. That same rebellious quality that the devil had to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these people over here, they have this devilish qualities as well, and there's rebelliousness that people come And they say, no, no, we're with you. We were just mocking them. But that's not going to be the case. Now, when they're mocking them, they're not repeating the same words. They're saying one, "we're with you," and two, "we were mocking them." These two sentences, although it looks like they're repeating themselves, but they're actually just supporting one another. One, they say, "We're with you." In other words, the faith that you have, although we're saying "La ilaha illallah" with our tongue, we're professing to the faith of the Prophet ﷺ with our tongue. In our hearts, we have your faith. We're with you. In other words, and the faith doesn't have to be exactly the same. It could be just that we're together in the sense that we're not taking and accepting this faith. The second part, which is we're mocking them, is affirming that we rejected that faith. So our faith and disbelief in that is the same, and our rejection of that belief is the same as well. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah mocks them and leaves them in their transgression or their rebelliousness to rebellious attitudes blind. Now, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not some people may look at it and be like, well, why is Allah mocking them? Yeah, they're doing it because they're bad, but why is Allah mocking them? And it's not the case. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mocking them. And because there are certain things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the same words just for them to get the idea. So in the sense that over here, that whatever reward is, whatever recompense, not reward, but recompense or punishment that they're getting for this mocking of the Prophet ﷺ and the believers, that same punishment, which is a type of mockingness, will be given back to them. Or it can be interpreted as that they're trying to harm the believers by mocking them. But what happens is that harm that they're trying to give to them actually just comes back to them. So in the end, they're the ones that are being mocked. And since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the controller of all things, it's as if they're being mocked by Allah, but Allah's just, their own mockery is leading to them being mocked. The other way that thing is that to interpret is that the result of mocking is what? To belittle someone, to bring them down, make them feel like they're nothing. And since that's what they're gonna get, then in the end, again, it's just like the one who's causing all of this to happen is letting it happen. And again, it's the same thing as before, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're trying to mock the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, belittle him, bring him down, and the believers, whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is lifting them. So by them trying to bring them down, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raising them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the cause of them being mocked themselves, because what they want doesn't occur. And even another part in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ أَجْرَمُوا كَانُوا مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا يَضْحَكُونَ. That the people who are criminals against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're laughing at the believers. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says at the end that فَالْيَوْمَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ يَضْحَكُونَ. That on that day, the believers will be actually laughing at the disbelievers. Now, it's not to say that on the day of judgment, there will be a group of believers, just like some high school kids holding their hands on top of one another's shoulder and be like, yeah, we're making it. And all of a sudden, they see some guy getting jacked at how far, they all just bust down like they're watching a YouTube video and start laughing at them. But the roles are reversed. We're looking at results again. They're laughing at the believers because they want to belittle them, and they think we're up here and they're down here. We get to laugh at them. But then the roles are reversed, that although the believers aren't going to be laughing at them, they will be, those people who are laughing at the believers in this world, they're going to be belittled, and the believers will be honored and lifted. Roles will be reversed. Now, the other thing that also to note is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for them, they said, إِنَّمَا نَحْنَ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ, that we are mocking them. But the word that's used is nouns that's used in that. We are only mocking them. That's why we're actually just with them, making them feel like they're bigger in number, making them feel like they're growing big or they're honorable, but we're just mocking them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't use a noun, but uses a verb. Now with nouns, it's continuous. Whenever a sentence is used where two nouns are used to make a sentence, there's this meaning of continuity there. Continuously we're mocking them. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the word because the verb because it what the effect that the verb gives it is that it's constantly happen over and over and over again. There might not be a straight line, but they're constantly, every time they try to mock the Prophet ﷺ, put him down, it leads to their own mockery. Whether it's not going on expeditions, whether it's making fun of believers who are poor, whatever they're doing, it just leads to their own belittlement. It just happens over and over and over again. They can stop it. How can they stop themselves being belittled? Stop belittling other people. It's as simple as that. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَىٰ فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُمْ وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. Those are the people who purchased misguidance with guidance. And they were not profitable, and their business was not profitable, nor were they guided. So you have this two products. You have guidance and you have misguidance. And what you see is you have guidance and you're like, I want some of that misguidance. So you give the currency of guidance, take the product of misguidance, you're on your way. This is what they did figuratively. They had the kalima, La ilaha illallah, on their tongues. They could have let it gone and taken this, whatever this, we just look at it. If it's something tangible over here, it's obviously not. But they got it. It's in their possession. Let it go to your heart. You said it. You professed to it. You testified to it. Let it go down to your heart. But they said no. Instead of that, they kept it in their hands. And they saw misguidance. They said, yes, I want that. And they gave up what they had from the kalima and took what they wanted, which was misguidance. Figuratively again. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he did is he took that meaning of figurative meaning and an analogy and then brought it into the results to be a reality. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they're purchasing misguidance with guidance. But their business is not profitable. Which business is something that is tangible. You go buy something, you buy a car, you sell it for more. You buy this product, you sell it for more. You make money and then you think this has value equivalent to that money or more valuable. You trade the money for that product. This is business. It's things that you get. Just to show how real the results are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that example, takes that analogy and brings it back to life and says their business was not profitable. And this is the difference when we also have something and someone sincerely takes a concept or whatever and takes it for real and is passionate about it and lets it go into their heart. It will be very hard for them to let it go. But if they're just like, I'll hold on to it, maybe, maybe not, it can easily be traded for something else. The misguidance that they purchased was when they leave the purpose. When you say La ilaha illallah, there's a purpose behind that kalima. That's why the polytheists couldn't take it. In the Quraysh, in Mecca, they couldn't say it. They could have just done the same thing. And say, hey, let's check it. If he says we can be leaders of all the Arab, let's do it. We can do that. Just fake it. But they wouldn't take it because they said there is a purpose behind this kalima and I'm not going to accept that purpose. These guys, since they were the lesser of the group, as the Muslims grew larger in Medina, they said we have to, otherwise we're going to be kicked out or we'll lose our positions or we'll lose our chance to be leaders in the future. So they took it, but they didn't fulfill its purpose. And another time we'll talk about how important the kalima la ilaha illallah is and all the purpose and responsibilities that come with that. So they lost because they lost in business because they purchased something that had no value, lesser than the low. And they had something that's so valuable that you couldn't put a price on it. Imagine we buy a house for $500,000, more than a quarter, less a quarter of a million or a million, whatever we buy, we just say this house is worth it, this land is worth it, I'm going to buy this. We live in it for 50, 60 years. Maybe we give it to our heirs and they inherit it and they can live in it for a while, generation. Maybe someone will sell it in the future. Maybe it just turns to money back as they sell it and that money goes away and that's it. The 30 years of effort that we took to pay for that house, it's after a few generations, it's gone. It's in the form of something else spread out amongst the people in their own as different currencies. Whereas What we have here, guidance, this is so valuable that it gives you a palace. Not just one palace, I'm not even going to get into how big or how much, but for an eternity, it's with us. That's how valuable guidance is. So over here, there are other scholars, like they would say, like these guys, what they did is they went for they exchanged guidance to misguidance. They exchanged obedience to disobedience, from the community to to just separation and seclusion, from safety to fear, from the way of the Prophet ﷺ to some innovation. They just completely traded everything good that they had for everything that had no value. So when we look at it again, a few things that we want to just take from this and say, okay, these qualities we don't want. One of them is being a two-face. This is when the Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith that the worst of the people is the people of two-face, that are two-faced. They come with one group with a certain face, and they come to a different group with a different face. And there are obviously a purpose behind all of it is corruption. That's the literal meaning of two-face. They go to try to spread corruption. I get this person, I hate that person, make this person jealous of that person, try to make some conflict, things like that. This is what the hypocrites were doing. They'll come to the Prophet ﷺ and the believers, and they'll say one thing, then they'll go behind their back and try to destroy them, try to spread more corruption. So this is, again, when it comes to faith. But in even the smallest of things, we have to remove this quality. Just being truthful with every single person. If we don't have something good to say, doesn't mean we're truthful. Just don't say it. You don't be like, well, I have to be truthful, and we say something that hurt people's feelings. If you don't have something good, just stay quiet. If that what you have to say is beneficial for them and they need to know, pull them to the side. Make sure that no one else will hear this problem, will hear this fault that they have. Then give them some advice in a beautiful way. And the other thing is to understand the value. Oh, well, first, before that, is just the devilish acts that we'll get into later. We're going to talk about it, but just understanding that there is a possibility that although we're not devils, we can actually have devilish qualities. And as we go through Surah Al-Baqarah, we'll see that a lot of these qualities will rise, and we'll be able to discuss them in detail. And the last thing is to understand the value of what we have. Small things that we were getting. I know, for example, high schoolers, I was in high school, one of the things that we enjoy the most is just going out, eating with our friends, and we don't value just the food that we have at home. And then most kids, when they go to college and even when they graduate, they really come back and value the home cooked meal, and they understand the value behind it. Or just the relationship between siblings, the relationship between friends, just the things that we have, and understanding that it is so valuable. But just because I don't see it, if I don't come to realize it, I'll just regret it later. So putting the value in the right place and understanding and taking a step back and not just going after what I want, but just once in a while look around and see what I have and just understand the value of that. If we don't, and we don't understand the value of it, there's going to be a lot of regrets in the future. That, oh man, I wish this, I wish I didn't do that, I wish I didn't say this, I wish I didn't say that. And then we just come. And most of the times, like most people, they get this realization that when they're kids and they do certain things, they don't realize until they get their own kids, like, oh man, I did this too, and now my kids are doing it to me. And you're going to try to explain it to your kids the same way that your parents try to explain it to you. But it'll have little effect. How do we make it have great effect? Is we do it ourselves. And then we'll be raised in having that quality of valuing everything important around us, and our kids will be raised the same way. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for all of our shortcomings. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.